In this video, we're going to look at the various means by which you can adjust the timings of the attacking player's movements. For a start, let's put a pass from player number 9 over to player number 8. Here we want 8 to move forward, but to have 7 and 12 as options for a short pass. Thus we want 7 and 12 to move up at roughly the same rate as 8. Meantime, we're going to have 10 come out here and run around 12 to become another option. So the move will look like this. When we run this move, however, we find that 8 has a tendency to get too far ahead of 7. The reason for that is that Alfred will cause supporting runners to slow down when they get close to the horizontal line of the ball carrier, so that they don't overrun the ball carrier and get into a position where they wouldn't be able to receive the ball. Therefore, Alfred makes them slow down. What we need to do, though, is to override that. There are two main options for overriding that behavior. The first is to right-click on the agent and go to Stick to Move. You see, when we do that, a cyan circle appears around the player to indicate that we have used at least one of these settings. The alternative approach is, instead of using Stick to Move, we can use Dummy Runner. You'll notice that Dummy Runner changes the color of the player so that it's easy to see which players are dummies in this move. However, when we run this move, we will see that the timing still isn't quite right. Now 7 comes up too early, then sits there and waits, and the same thing ends up happening. Ideally, we want 7 and 8 running up at about the same time. To achieve that, we can set the timing for 7 and 8's runs by using the trigger run radius feature. This is implemented by selecting the trigger run radius circle in the top right hand corner and coming down to the player you want to select, then left clicking on the player and dragging the mouse to make the circle the width that you need. Now I'll do the same for number 8, and because I want them to leave about the same time, I want their circles to touch over here. The way this works is that these players will be triggered to run once the ball comes through their circle. So at the moment the ball will come through their circles at about the same time. I can now run a test of this to see that that is the case. Now 7 is coming up and running a good dummy line there, while 8 was able to break a tackle and make the line break. Now I also want 12 coming at the same time to be an option. And also for 10 to run around 12. And be an option as well. But as you can see, 10 is falling back behind the run of play a little bit too much. So first I'll address what's happening with 12. Once again, we want 12 to be running forward about the same time as 7 and 8, and reset the trigger run radius so that 12 leaves at about the same time. And that works better. Now 12 is still pretty slow there, so we'll go back and we will use the dummy runner, and we may even change his waypoint speed by selecting pace to sprint. It's starting to look more like it. Now let's look at number 10. Ideally we might want 10 much further up the field at that point in the move. So once again we can do that by adjusting the pace to have number 10 sprint. We can also tell 10 to stick to the move, which means he won't slow down when he starts to reach the horizontal line of the ball. We can also have 10 set off earlier by selecting a trickle run radius that goes outside the radius of the other players. So let's run that now. Suppose we think that 10 is still running too late. Another option we have here is to use the moves during set piece option. What that means is that 12 can move while the set piece is occurring. If I run this now, you'll see that, that's 10, will start to move even though the set piece is in play, so 10 will move before all the other players. The reason that 10 didn't move then is because we already had a trigger run radius set for 10, so what we need to do is clear that trigger run radius for 10 by right clicking and then go down clear trigger run radius. Now that we've removed that, 10 should move straight away. But because I had put stick to move, 10 is moving up far too far. So I've removed stick to move, and now 10 will slow down once the line of the horizontal line of the ball is reached. So hopefully this video has given you some ideas for how you can manipulate the behavior of the agents on attack. This is version 20.38. I'll be continuing to work on ALFRED and trying to make it easier to implement these moves and reduce the requirement for setting these kinds of tweaks to the moves to get the timing right. Hopefully we can get the agents working in a way where they can decide the timings themselves, but that's a little way in the future at this point.